All right. So I want to welcome our guest speaker for the next 30, 45 minutes or so. As you all know, Raja Abdelaziz, she was an advisor through the boot camp. She's also the CEO of invisaWear. She's a past winning difference maker idea challenge team. So her and her team have gone on to really make a difference in people's lives and to really be successful. So she is here. She's going to share more about her company, the process, also some advice that she has for you all as young entrepreneurs. And then at the end, there'll be time for Q&A, but please feel free to chat in questions throughout her presentation. So Raja, thank you so much for being here. Welcome, and we're all looking forward to your presentation.
My pleasure, Holly. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to share a little bit more about my story with everyone. I know you guys have heard me talk about invisor so much over the last few weeks, so I'm excited to tell you more. I'm pulling up the presentation. Sorry about that. So I just bought a brand new laptop and it's been giving me a little bit of problems. It didn't like my video this morning. So if you guys saw me like turning off my video camera 4 times, sorry about that. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm so glad to hear that. I'll bring a copy of the deck over here so I can make eye contact with you guys as well. Perfect. Perfect. So you guys all know me, but my name is Rajia Abdelaziz. I'm the co-founder and CEO of invisaWear. So I never meant to start a company, you guys. It all happened by complete accident. One night after an event, I was walking back to my car when a car full of guys started following me. They rolled down the window and started yelling some super inappropriate comments. At first, I kind of rolled my eyes and continued walking because unfortunately, things like this happen to women all the time. This time was different though, you guys. The car stopped and one of the guys started to get out. Although I had my phone on me, there isn't enough time during an emergency to look at the attacker and say, hey, can you pause attacking me? I'm just gonna grab my phone, unlock it, dial 911, tell them where I am, what the emergency is. Oh, and can you please wait 7 to 10 minutes while the police arrive? Of course, that's unrealistic. The attacker is gonna grab your phone and you won't have time to call a friend or family member who's close by or even the police. Sadly, in the United States, one attack occurs every 90 seconds. Out of the 157 million women living in the US today, statistics show that 1 out of every 5 of them is sexually assaulted at some point in her lifetime. This is highly unacceptable, and this is exactly why I started invisor. invisor creates smart jewelry with life-saving technology hidden inside. It looks like necklaces, bracelets. We even have them in keychains, fitness bands, hair scrunchies. If you press twice on the button that is hidden on the back side, it immediately sends a text message to 5 people you pre-select in the app. It sends a link to your live location, so even if you're abducted or kidnapped, it will continue to follow you. And depending on if you have the free and optional 911 feature enabled, it can also contact ADT security, who will notify 911 on your behalf. The setup process is super simple. It works with a free app that you download on your phone. If you choose 5 emergency contacts, you can customize them at any time. So you can have friends or family members. You can add coworkers. If you're not at work, you can remove your coworkers and add the friends and family back. And then this is how to use invisor. I always tell people, I really hope you're never in an emergency situation. But if you are, you simply double click the charm. That's what the alert looks like. It says invisor emergency. Raja has initiated the emergency procedure. Raja's approximate location is blank. If you're unable to contact Raja, please send help to her location. And then at the end of the setup process, you're able to place a test alert as well. We've been extremely fortunate to have a lot of success over the past few years. So after that scary situation I had, thankfully I wasn't hurt, you guys. I ran to the car, I locked the doors, and I like wasn't hurt. But what I couldn't get out of my mind is how extremely lucky I was and how that situation could have easily ended worse. There's nothing special about me. I could have been that person you hear on the news that was raped, abducted, killed, or even worse. So I am extremely lucky, but I really wanted to do something about it. And that's why I told my best friend, Ray, I said, Ray, we need to create something like this. Originally, we actually just started looking online for safety devices like invisaWear, but everything was a big, ugly panic button. My grandma is 80 and she says she'd rather fall and not be able to get up than to be seen wearing one of those ugly panic buttons. So it made no sense to me why companies are marketing them to young women or any woman at all. But after Ray and I were looking online and we couldn't find anything, we decided, you know what, why don't we work on something like this for our senior year capstone project? And one day we're sitting in class, Holly walks in, she's talking about how amazing the Difference Maker program is. And everybody keeps saying, you guys need to enter, you need to enter. We ended up entering. We took home first place for an innovative technology solution. And in that moment, you guys, I remember thinking, that's it. This is the sign I needed. After I graduate college, I'm going to decline all of the job opportunities I have, and I'm going to work on invisaware full time. We'll come back later in the slide deck to this portion of the story because it was not easy. And I got a ton of backlash from friends and family who thought I was crazy. But we'll come back to that in a minute. But yeah, so after we graduated and won the prototyping competition in the fall and then the idea challenge in the spring, we both, Ray and I, ended up declining some prestigious job opportunities to work on invisaware full time. We ended up launching an Indiegogo campaign and we met 200% of our funding goal. So our goal was $20,000 and we ended up doing close to $50,000. We met our original goal in 1 week and we were one of the few campaigns that actually shipped on time. We've been extremely fortunate to get a lot of national press exposure. We've been on ABC News, CBS, WBZ, Good Morning America. We've been in Us Weekly, Men's Journal, BuzzFeed. We have a publication coming out in August in the Wall Street Journal. We've been in the Washington Post. We've been in the Boston Globe. I could keep you guys here for a while, so I'll leave it at that list. But we've partnered with a lot of notable influencers and bloggers. But the best part is we've had a lot of incredible success stories. So when Ray and I were first getting started, one of the biggest things people told us is that 90% of companies fail, 90% of companies never make it to market. And Ray and I kept saying, well, what if we're the 1 out of 10 that does? Why are you assuming that we're going to be 9 out of 10 that fail? What if one day we bring this product to market and we save someone's life? And that's exactly what happened. We were the 1 out of 10. We brought the product to market. We raised funding. It was extremely exciting for us. But I'll never forget the first time we found out that we saved someone's life. I was crying, Ray was crying. I'll pull up the video at the end if you guys would like to see it. But essentially, we helped a young woman who was involved in a scary car accident. She ended up getting stuck in the car after hitting some dry ice and she couldn't find her phone. During most car accidents, your phone is ejected or it's super hard to find. So the way the car accident happened, her leg was like trapped in the car, so she couldn't move. People stopped by and they were trying to call 911 to help her, but it just so happened to be a dead zone. She remembered that her aunt had gotten her an invisaWear keychain just a week prior. And she said she was just praying to God that it would work. And she kept pressing the button and it did. It notified her family who was able to come to the scene. They were able to connect with 911 dispatchers. Her dad and the ambulance arrived at the same exact time. And it was a really heartfelt story because when she got out of the hospital, she called Ray and I to thank us for saving her life. But just like that story, we've had so many seniors who've fallen and couldn't get up. We've had people in medical situations. We had one woman who said she had a pancreatic attack that went from 0 to 100 real quick, and she didn't have her phone on her, so she was able to use it. We had another woman who fell and broke her ankle in a closet. We had a girl who was trapped in a dorm room who had to use her invisaWear. So that's really the best part of our story, is hearing about people we help. But this is our team. So myself and Ray, I wanted to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey. And I shared with you guys all of these exciting success stories, but I also want you to know that this didn't happen overnight. People always say things to me and Ray like, oh my gosh, you guys are so lucky, you're so successful, but they don't see that we were up at 6 a.m. working till midnight all of last week. People tend to assume that it was such an easy journey getting here. And it was not. It was a huge risk. We both turned down really great job opportunities. I had an opportunity with Google that would have been 6 figures, and Ray had an opportunity with Dell as well, where he did his internship. And both of us turned down those opportunities. We didn't get a lot of support from our loved ones at the beginning. So do you guys remember when I told you I'll come back to this at a later time? So when I ended up graduating college after winning Difference Makers, I told my family, I said, you know what, like now that we've won Difference Makers, I feel extremely passionate about this business idea that we've been working on. I can't help but think, what if this saves someone's life one day? Or what if I can stop one sexual assault from happening? How can I just take a job and not try to bring a product like this that can save people's lives to market? And at first, my family was kind of hesitant. They were like, okay, well, you've been working really hard for the last 4 years. You did a double major in electrical engineering, computer science. Sure, you can take the next 3 months to see where this project goes. About halfway through the summer, I get a call from tech giant Google, who wants to do an interview, wants to fly me out, wants to give me a really great opportunity as a software engineer. I would have been making well over $100,000 working for Google. I would have had been in California right now on their campus, choosing where I want to get my free lunch from the 32 restaurants on their campus. I would have had free gym, unlimited vacation days. It all sounded like a dream come true, you guys. And if that opportunity had presented itself to me a year prior, it would have been a no-brainer. That would definitely have been my dream. But I couldn't get it out of my mind, you guys, how I just really needed to start invisaWear and how I could help create a difference in people's lives. My family did not take that too well at first. I remember getting home one day, and I kid you guys not, there was literally an intervention in my kitchen. My mom used language like, this is the biggest mistake of your life. How can you turn down such a great opportunity? Are you crazy? You're ruining your life. Every negative thing in the world. Basically, I was only 21 at the time. I'm actually not too much older than you guys. I just turned 27. So this was 5 years ago that this conversation happened. But I remember her saying, you're only 21 years old to bring invisor to market. You're going to need at least $150,000. Where are you going to get that money from? We're not like wealthy. We can't give you $150,000. We can't even give you like $15,000. So what makes you think that anyone's going to give you that type of money? It's really sad. I feel like some friends as well said the same thing to me, and it was really heartbreaking to see people you care about so much and love and have such high respect tell you that you're not going to make it. But I remember I still get emotional talking about this, but I remember sitting across Ray at his dining room table, just crying, being like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, I'll support whatever decision you want to do. And I remember, sorry guys, I still get emotional over this. But I remember being like, well, everyone's going to be disappointed in me if I work on invisaWear and decline Google. And Ray was like, nobody cares about them. What we care about is you. What do you want to do with your life? What is going to make you happy? That's all that matters right now. And thank goodness I listened to him, because I really needed to start invisaWear. And everyone who doubted us was wrong. People were saying we couldn't raise $100,000. Well, now we've raised over $3 million, you guys. We've done over $1 million in sales. The people that told us we'd never make it to market, we told ourselves, what if we do make it to market? I remember after turning down Google, Ray and I were just living off of our life savings from our internships. And I remember at one point we were working super late and we were both starving and we couldn't even afford to order a pizza, you guys, a $10 to $20 pizza. And I know most of you guys are in college, so I know you guys are all in a similar boat. But I just want to say, like, the future is bright. I actually just bought my dream car a few months ago. I bought a BMW and I was in tears after signing on it, because I remember not being able to afford that $10 pizza. But I'm not going to lie, it was a very difficult journey. People tend to see all the success and they don't see the hard work that comes behind it, or the struggles, or the sacrifices that you have to make, or the long hours. I remember thinking that when we had 15 employees, so we now just recently hired our 15th employee last week, which is extremely exciting. But I remember thinking that if one day we had 15 employees, all I could picture was I would be on the beach sipping pina coladas. And now that's not the case. I'm still working so many long hours. We were so blessed to be presented with the incredible opportunity to be featured on QVC. And 5 years ago, after Difference Maker, had you told me that we were going to be featured on QVC, I probably would have fell out of this chair. But with all of these incredible opportunities comes a lot of hard work. Last week, we needed to assemble thousands of units in such a short time frame. And every single person was saying this is going to be impossible. I remember even our manufacturers, I was like, I need X amount of units in a day and a half. And he was like, Rajia, this is impossible. This is not doable. And I was like, Lewis, there's no such thing as impossible. I will not sleep. Like, don't test me. I will not sleep. Everyone I love won't sleep. And it's so funny because both of my brothers work for us full time now. And they're both very late people, as in they like to wake up late. You never see anyone in my family up before 8 a.m. Both of them were up at 6 a.m. at the factory packing jewelry. Even my dad almost needed to take time off to pack jewelry. I'm like getting emotional because I just like picture myself in your shoes 5 years ago, you guys. And I never thought this would have been possible, especially with everybody telling us we wouldn't be able to make it. So it's very surreal, and I want each and every one of you guys to know that you guys can also be in the same position that I am today. So let me take you guys to the next slide. One of the biggest things that Ray and I learned from doing the Difference Maker Bootcamp was talking to customers. And that's why we've been stressing it this whole past month, to really do your research, figure out who your customers are, who your audience is. When Ray and I were doing the Difference Maker Bootcamp, we originally thought that only college-aged women were going to buy our products. But as we started talking to more and more people, we found out that the market opportunity is much larger. We found out that realtors who are showing property on their own to strangers have really great fears about it, because unfortunately there's been a lot of attacks in that industry. People see a real estate agent as an easy target because they get a home showing where they have this woman all alone in a house. We talked to nurses and doctors who were working late at night who said that they wanted an invisaWear because they were followed after leaving the hospital and walking to the garage. We talked to women that like to travel who are telling us about how they feel nervous and anxious in different parts of the world where they've never been or don't have loved ones around. We talked to runners who said that they are nervous about going on a morning jog because they're worried that they'll be the next news story. We even talked to seniors like my grandmother, who shockingly are now one of our biggest supporters. Seniors don't want to wear those big, ugly devices because they compromise their dignity. So had Ray and I not listened to Holly's advice, we would have limited our entire market to just college-aged women. We would have never known that there's a much larger market opportunity. Actually, when we were in the boot camp, we started doing more research and we found out that we're part of the personal safety and security devices industry, which is currently valued at $20.8 billion globally, and it's growing at an 8% compound annual growth rate. So knowing those metrics and presenting them to investors showed them that there was the potential for a high return on investment. I will have to say though, one of the biggest reasons we were able to be successful is because of our advisors and our mentors. Ray Southworth was actually a mentor we were paired with in Difference Makers years ago, and he still works with us to this day. I consider Ray family now because I've called him crying during our darkest times, and I've also called him crying because I'm so happy because we saved someone's life. And we would not be here if it wasn't for Ray's help, Lewis's help, Chris, who you guys met, helped us get our patents. Let me show you guys. I won't disconnect my computer, but you guys see that patent on the wall? That was Chris's team. This is actually Ray has his headphones in, but there's two other patents on the wall above his head. These are, you probably can't see, but these are some of my smiling faces that I get to look at every day and my lovely employees. But one of the biggest pieces of advice that I have for you guys is to network and to make really great connections so you can learn from other people's mistakes. I remember when we were first getting started, Ray and I, one of our weaknesses was we didn't have a mechanical engineer. We had like a big board with a big button. I wrote the app, Ray developed the hardware, and we'd be like, look, investors, if you press this massive button, it sends out a text message with a link. And we didn't really know how to turn that into this or to make it look stylish. We just had the concept. And another piece of advice actually is to always share your challenges with people. A lot of people like to pretend that the world is going great and there's no problems, and you're just lying to yourself if you say that. Every single business has challenges. Even invisaWear till this day has challenges that we're always working to fix. But I always encourage you to be vocal about the issues that you're experiencing so that you can find connections to help you get past those challenges. So early on, Ray and I kept being very vocal that we needed a mechanical engineer, that we really didn't know how to turn this board into a beautiful jewelry, but we needed to find an expert who would. And we actually ended up, after doing the Difference Maker Bootcamp, doing an accelerator called E4All. And I'll never forget, we won, I think it was 3rd place in one of their pitch competitions. We went up, we introduced ourselves to each of the judges at the end. One of the judges, his name is Mateo. He said, well, how's it going? We said, it's going great, but you know what? We're really struggling to find a mechanical engineer. If you know anyone, please let us know. Like, that's our biggest weakness. That's where we really need the most help. And lo and behold, you guys, this is why I say talk about your challenges. Little did we know that Mateo was a mechanical engineer who owned a mechanical engineering business. And he actually is the first one who created the invisaWear charm. But it was really incredible. Had we not shared the challenges and just said, oh, everything's going great, Mateo, we would have never learned that he's a mechanical engineer. We would have never made that connection. But it's really interesting because at the time we were broke college students still. We hadn't raised additional funding. And I remember Mateo gave us a really great offer. He said, you know what, you guys, since you guys don't have a lot of money, I'll take a portion of the business. And in exchange for that, I'll do all of your mechanical design for free. And Ray and I were like, oh my gosh, we hit the jackpot. This is amazing. This guy's going to do this work for free in exchange for a percent of our company. We went back to our mentors and we were like, guys, this is wonderful news. We found our mechanical engineer. He's not going to charge us. And I remember the look on Ray and our other mentor, Bob's face. They were like, no, don't give him a percent of the company. And Ray and I are like, what do you mean? Like, we wouldn't have to pay him. And they're like, do you know how much the company is going to be worth one day? Like, are you crazy? Of course you need to pay him. And we're like, but if we pay him, it's going to be like $10,000. We can just give him 10% of the company and not have to pay him $10,000. And I remember all of our mentors were like, does anyone watch TikTok and see those trends where it's like, and that was the greatest idea I ever had. And then it like pauses and it goes into the future. It was like, that was the worst idea I ever had. That's how I feel about this scenario. Is Ray and I, like, when we thought about it, we're like, this is the greatest idea ever. And now years later, I'm like, that was the worst idea ever. Thank God we had mentors that we listened to who advised us not to do that, because we would have essentially been paying him $100,000 by giving him equity versus giving him $10,000. So one of our mentors, he explained it very politely. He said, you know what, you guys, I always tell people you should date before you decide to get married. You shouldn't just jump into, hey, you're amazing. We had a great first date. Let's get married. He was like, basically, this is what you guys are telling us with Mateo. But Mateo may not be in your life for the rest of your entire life. But if you give him equity, then you're basically legally tied to them. It's almost like a marriage. So we ended up telling Mateo, hey, we're going to pay you instead of giving you equity. And that was the best decision we made, listening to our mentors. Mateo's such an amazing guy. I can't speak highly enough of him, but we don't work with him now. We have a different mechanical engineering firm that was a better fit for us in the long term. But I just can't help but think that we would have had like this business partner who wouldn't have been involved, who would have owned a significant amount of the company, all because we didn't want to pay $10,000. So you need to make sure you're learning from other people's mistakes. Ray and Bob didn't just suggest that because they thought of it. They suggested that because they've learned it the hard way as well. So that is some of the different experiences we've learned. I always tell people you want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you. Lewis is way smarter than me. Whenever I have a challenge, I call Lewis. I say, hey, Lewis, can I get your advice? What are your thoughts? Holly's way smarter than me. I call her all the time, like, hey, Holly, do you know this person? What do you think of this? And she always has great ideas as well. What other advice do I have for you guys? I want to leave time for questions. So I'll end with some words of wisdom for you. This first one we actually have as a big picture frame in the office. It says, businesses don't fail, people quit. And this one is actually something Brian Riss told me at an event when we met him at. And when he said it, Ray and I were like, oh my gosh, that is so true. So many challenges we've faced and we've overcome them because we said, you know what, we have to get through this. We have to get through this challenge. It's really funny because running a startup is literally a roller coaster. You have the best moments in the morning, and then you have the worst moments in the evening, and then you have the best moments in the morning again. But really, the only way to be successful is to not quit. So I really, really love that quote. Even during the pandemic in the early days, it was very scary for us. And Ray and I were thinking, okay, well, what do we do? How do we stay afloat? How do we make sure we don't have to lay off any people? And the pandemic actually ended up, fortunately, being one of the best things that happened to us, because we went to the drawing board and we said, okay, what can we do? We reached out to ADT, the #1 name in security. We said, hey, you guys are amazing. We have a lot of customers in common, and do you want to talk to us? And I'll never forget sending that email and thinking, I'm never going to hear back from them. And we use this email tool called MailTrack that tells you if someone read your email, if they clicked the link, all this stuff. Highly recommend it for you guys when you start reaching out to big partners, because it allows you to make good decisions, like, oh, they read the email. Okay, great. Let me follow up in 2 days. Or, oh, they clicked the link, so they're interested. So I remember sending that email out to ADT, and the next day I get a notification, so-and-so press the link on the website. And I'm like, Ray, ADT pressed the link to go to our website. And Ray's like, Rajia, don't get your hopes up. Someone going to our website doesn't mean anything's going to happen. I'm like, but Ray, they pressed the link. And then a day later, they emailed saying they wanted to have a meeting. And then 10 meetings later, over the course of 6 months, we ended up having an agreement signed. But it would have been easy to say, oh my gosh, this world pandemic happened, we need to give up, the world is ending, the economy is going to crash, all of this stuff. But we really took that to our advantage and said, how can we learn from this? How can we find bigger opportunities? How can we look in the future and say, thank goodness that happened? So another thing that is actually my favorite quote of all time is, some people dream of success and others stay up all night to achieve it. So many people tell me, oh my gosh, I really wish I could start a company. You're so lucky. Luck has nothing to do with it, you guys. You put in what you get out. It's all hard work. People sit here and say, I wish I would start my company. I wish I would be this successful. But if you're not staying up all night, you're not gonna be successful. I mean, you have to put in the hard work. You have to make the sacrifices, even, not to pick on anyone else, but even difference maker teams that we were working with at the time would say things like, oh, I wish I could do this, but I have a full-time job. Well, you know what? Ray had a full-time job when we started invisaWear. And every single minute that he was not spending at his job, he was spending with me working on invisaWear. So excuses won't get you anything. Dreaming of success won't get you anything. You have to work for it. And then the last thing that I'll leave you with, that's food for thought, is if you don't build your dreams, someone else is going to hire you to build yours, or theirs, excuse me. But I really encourage you to find a topic that you're passionate about and to pursue it. I really think each and every one of you guys has the potential to be in our shoes right now and to be mentoring people 5 years from now and giving them advice. So I really hope to keep track of your progress and to see each and every one of you guys be super successful. Don't give up. Don't follow your dreams, chase them. Each and every one of you guys has the potential to be extremely successful. Keep working hard, keep asking for advice, keep surrounding yourself with mentors, learn from other people's failures. And that concludes my TED Talk for the day. But I hope this was helpful, you guys. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my experiences with you guys. I'm always happy to help. I would not be in the position I am today if it wasn't for everyone who helped me. So don't hesitate to email me. I did put my number on there. I'm not the best at phone calls or texts. I always joke with my friends. I'm like, I have a 5 to 7 business day response on text messages. My friends joke that they're going to email me if they want a response. But feel free to email me if it's something urgent or pressing. You're always welcome to call. But I hope this was helpful. I'm excited to hear you guys' questions and happy to help in any way I can.
Thank you, Rajia. That was a great presentation. Lots of great stories and sort of learning about all the hardships and hard decisions you had to go through. So we really appreciate your time. That was really wonderful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So teams, any questions or, anything you'd like to either ask or, oh, here we go. Elliot.
So Raja, thank you first off for the amazing presentation. Um, my question is, how did you acquire the initial capital to start your first production run of the units? And then from there, how did you scale up production while maintaining cash flow positive?
Great question. So in the early days, Ray and I knew we needed $150,000 to get started with the company. And I'll send you guys a presentation for Holly to share about all the different funding sources that you can get. We did so many things. I could keep you guys here for an hour, so I'll give you the short version of this, but we ended up taking some loans from family members. We did it appropriately. We contacted a lawyer, put together a promissory note that said that they'll get back within a certain time frame. They were small amounts of money, like $5,000 each. We ended up raising $50,000 from family and friends. And then from there, Ray and I actually went and got a loan from an organization called the Lowell Development Financial Corporation. It was a $100,000 loan that UMassel will actually help us get. UMassel had to write a recommendation letter. So that first $150,000 allowed us to hire app developers who could help us develop the app. It allowed us to purchase injection molds, hire the mechanical engineering firm that we wanted, and bring the products to market. From there, we launched pre-orders on Indiegogo while we were manufacturing our first batch. That allowed us to get in an additional $50,000 in revenue. Then we started selling direct to consumer on our website, started showing that there's traction. We started approaching investors. We actually pitched to the UMassel Riverhawk Venture Group, who invested $100,000 in us. And then we started entering more accelerators. So we entered an accelerator called Mass Challenge. We networked with a lot of investors there. And then we raised our round of financing to scale. At that point, we raised millions of dollars in that round. And that really helped us invest in a lot of marketing. One of our biggest reasons that we've been as successful as we have is because of our great customers. Our customers really are our number one priority, and a happy customer on average tells 5 other people about their experience.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, I just want to make sure this is correct. I'm understanding this. You didn't take on like an equity investment from an investor until you had production going. So you did loans to finance your first production, and then once you had production going, you could take on investors to get a higher valuation.
Yes, exactly, Elliot. That is very atypical, and we're very blessed that we were able to do that because it allowed us to maintain a larger ownership stake in the company, since we had already de-risked the risk for investors because we had a product. But taking on that original $100,000 loan was definitely a risk as well, because had we not launched the company, Ray and myself would have been both liable to pay that money back to the bank. But we did raise equity financing of millions of dollars later on to help us scale the company. Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bernard.
Yes, thank you so much, Raja. This has been one of the most inspirational and humorous presentation I've ever had in my life. So I'd wanted to.
Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to find out how long did it take you to have the first product, and at what point did you feel did you find that you were able to? There's a need for you to get money to start a company, because now you have a product which you're still prototyping and you're not sure you yet. You have to go to maybe few people to use it, and then you get the feedback. So how did you go through all this, to have something which is consumable and everyone is able to willing to buy?
I love that question, Bernard. And it's funny that you asked that, because I asked myself that too at the same time. I remember thinking, okay, when we make it to market, we're just going to sell our product and we'll never need to raise a dime again. Well, remember that news story that I told you about with that young woman in a car accident? So her family was so happy and so grateful that we saved her life. They called every news station in Boston and they said, hey, you need to do a story on this company because you need to help save other people's lives. You need to raise awareness. That ABC News story that was done in Boston ultimately ended up getting picked up in every ABC across the country. We ended up going so viral, you guys, we sold out of 4 months worth of inventory in just a couple of weeks. So now we needed to place large inventory orders worth $500,000 and more. So in order to meet the demand, we're like, well, now we need more money to buy product so that we can sell the product to make more money. So that's why a lot of startups end up needing to raise even more financing as well.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. But I remember thinking the same exact thing. I remember being like, when we get to market, we just sell products. Even now, like at the rate we're growing, we need so many more employees. You're always like reinvesting your dollars.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you. Ariel.
Yeah, so my question is, from the time that you first had the idea to the point where you ended up selling these through your website, about how long was that?
So typically most startups make it to market in 4 years. We made it to market in exactly 2 years. So we formally incorporated the company in July of 2016. Actually, our 5th year birthday coming up this July. I can't believe it. We're so excited. We're planning a massive celebration. But we launched the product in August 2018. People always ask, they're like, how in the world did you guys launch a tech startup and raise money and bring the product to market in 2 years? And I always tell like people jokingly, but also realistically, I'm like, well, we really didn't sleep. So 2 years was almost like 4 years to us. Like half joking, but at the same time, I'm like, well, we really did stay up till like 2 a.m. and wake up at 9 a.m. every single day. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, you guys, that go into it. I'm not gonna lie, you will lose a lot of friends because not everyone is supportive of you not going out and partying on a Friday night or a Tuesday night because you want to work on a startup and like build your dreams. But you'll meet the friends that are loyal and support you and who will do everything for you and who will really go above and beyond.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, you guys? Any other advice, comments, suggestions? I'm always open to constructive feedback as well. I always tell people that's how you can improve. So feel free to share the constructive feedback as well if you have it.
I have question. So I have question about like failure. So when you start, there are a lot of people around saying that you will not make it, something like that. So how do you think of like if you don't make it, like what they have said? So what you will do at that time? Are you thinking back like?
Sorry, can you repeat the question as well?
So my question is, when you start the business, people around you keep saying that you will not make it, or there's a lot of obstacle to make it happen. Have you think at that time that if you fail, what would you do at that time?
I love this question as well. That's a great question. So honestly, we just kept telling ourselves that what if we did make it? And honestly, there's no such thing as failing. It's a learning opportunity. If we did fail, we were going to learn something out of it. Most entrepreneurs actually have started multiple companies beforehand and failed. I mean, the CEO of Tesla, he started multiple companies beforehand before shooting up to the level of success he's at currently. So I don't know how, but Ray and I just kept saying failing isn't an option. And if you keep telling yourself that, I think you'll really believe it. It was definitely disappointing for us to not have our friends and family support at the beginning. But I will say now they're all extremely supportive. My brother, who is a year younger than me, recently he had a really great job at Fidelity and he left his company to work at invisaWear. And I will never forget, my mom was like, is everyone just quitting their life to do invisaWear? But no, everyone who expressed concerns from my family is now super proud and super grateful. So you just got to believe in yourself, you guys. Don't listen to people who say you won't be able to make it. They don't know. If you work hard enough, I truly believe you can do anything.
Good advice.
Thank you. Any other questions? Those were all good questions, you guys.
No questions for me, but I just want to say thank you for your talk. It was super inspirational. So.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad it was helpful.
Raja, I have one question. Can you talk a bit about how you may have pivoted your idea? Kind of, you were talking about how you and Ray sort of had an idea and then you actually discovered what customers wanted, and how, you know, sometimes it's good, like you mentioned, not to be married to people, but not to be married to your idea, because, you know, most likely it will change, it will adapt, it will pivot a little bit. Could you just share a little bit about your experience with that?
Right, absolutely. So it's super important, you guys, to gather customer feedback and to learn about what your customers want, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are paying for the product. So it's about what they want, not what you want. So when Ray and I originally started working in the boot camp, we're both engineers, mind you. So our mentality was, ooh, we got to make this thing as technological as possible. When you press it, it's going to have a vibration motor. It's going to vibrate. There will be like LEDs. You can tell if somebody responds saying, oh my gosh, got your alert. When it vibrates, you can like feel it and be like, okay, they're coming to rescue me. And that was going to make our device the size of a $50. And as we continue talking and talking to people, I kid you guys not, all people cared about was looks. All women wanted was, how small can you make this jewelry? How pretty can you make this jewelry? And will someone be able to tell whether or not I'm wearing a safety device? And at the size it was with the vibration motor, people were not going to wear it. They weren't going to buy it. So we ended up having to go back to the drawing board, and we were like, okay, I guess we're going to remove the vibration motor. That will make the device half the size. It will make it as small as possible. And I remember talking to people being like, well, like, don't you like the vibration motor idea? Don't you want to know if like someone's coming to get you? And they were like, do you think while we're panicking in an emergency situation, we're going to feel a tiny piece of vibration? Our heart is going to be like vibrating. And it was funny. We're like, oh, we didn't think of that. We wouldn't have known that had we not talked to people. And I'm like, okay, well, wouldn't you want to know that it worked? And they're like, well, aren't you going to do tests to make sure it works before you sell it? Like, why would we buy a product if it's not going to work? If it's not going to work, we're going to read the reviews that are going to tell us it's not going to work, and we would never buy it in the first place. And I'm like, wow, these are all great points that you would not think of. Obviously, it's going to work. We're not going to put a product out on the market until it's tested and works 100% of the time. So that was all really great feedback, but I'm so thankful that we talked to customers, because we would have not thought of that on our own. And at the end of the day, I agree completely with customers. I don't wear big, bulky jewelry. So nobody would have wanted to wear it if it was double the size.
Thank you, Raja.
You're so welcome.
All right. Any last questions or comments or feedback? All
I do
right.
have one more question.
Yeah.
So, I know you've been talking about how very busy you are. How did you manage to achieve a sort of work-life balance? Because I'm assuming during this time you still had a personal life and people that you put time aside for to spend with them.
That's a great question. And to be honest with you, that is something I am trying to work on figuring out myself these days. I am engaged. I got engaged 2 years ago, and we're in the process of planning the wedding and buying a house. So that's exciting. But I met my fiance a little over a year after starting invisaWear. And it's really funny, Ariel, that you mentioned this, because when he asked me out on a date, I immediately turned him down. I was like, nope, I'm sorry. All of my life consists of running my business right now. I'm not interested, but we can be friends. And we ended up becoming really good friends. And he ended up being super supportive of my crazy work schedule and life. It was funny. One of the reasons I like ended up falling in love with him and like wanting to be more than friends, he would do like nice things. He would like make myself and my business partner Ray dinner and like drop it off when we would work really late. He was just super sweet. But definitely all of my friends and family are just super accommodating, and they understand that I'm busy. They understand how hard we work. So I'm thankful to have such amazing people in my life who are understanding of my situation. But definitely, Ariel, something I need to personally work on better. But you can only do your best, I guess. I think vacation days help. I actually had Thursday, Friday, and then yesterday and today off. So I'm excited I get to spend the first part of my day off with you guys. It's a fun morning.
Well, congratulations on your engagement. And
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, with that, Raja, I just want to thank you again for your time and, sharing your story with all the students. It was extremely inspirational. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Holly. And I stick by what I said earlier. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Holly. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for difference makers. So thank you, Holly, for all of your incredible support and for everything you do for us till this day.
Thank you.
Awesome. There's Ray. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Raj.
Nice
Bye.
chatting
Thank
with
you.
you.